I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Eric Nevins. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I'm doing great. I hope you're well too.
I'm well. I'm pretty well tonight. Thanks for making that statement. I'm pretty well. Please tell us, what part of the world are you in right now?
I am in Denver, Colorado.
All right. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time?
I believe it's podcasting. I have a podcast called Halfway There where I interview people about their spiritual journey with God. It's something I went to school for and just found podcasting to be a fun way to kind of put that to use,
Yeah, podcasting is amazing. So who did you learn the skill of podcasting from?
So there's two skills. I think one, the ability to just ask a question and be quiet and be attentive, which is kind of crucial to podcasting in an interview format. I learned by doing 10 years of customer service over the phone. And so it was a long 10 years. Yes.
That'll help.
Yeah, right. But it did help. And I'm only just now starting to appreciate what that's done for me when I, interview people and ask questions and people say things, like they love to hear my questions. But the skill of actually putting together a podcast, of course, I learned that from, the great people, probably, too, Cliff Ravenscraft and John Lee Dumas and Pat Flynn and those kind of people.
Yeah. And so you're speaking to people about their Christian walk, right?
Yes.
So who did you learn that from? Like your Christian walk, who did you learn that from?
That's a good question. My family always went to church. It was a Christian family. But I just knew as a high schooler that I wanted to do something with that. I was just enthusiastic about it. So I ended up going to college and got a degree in biblical studies and then went to seminary, which is what brought us to Denver. Got a Master of Divinity with an emphasis in spiritual formation. I've always had that kind of desire to figure out, how do people grow, or what are the steps that people go through as they're on a spiritual journey with God.
That's intriguing. Well, how has the podcast impacted you as a host?
Oh man, all kinds of ways. I think, man, it's hard to. The biggest thing I think is I've learned that there is no one way. The stories that I heard as a kid were always usually dramatic. I was bad, I found God, and then now I'm good. And what I've learned is that there's a whole lot more to the story. There's a book that I use called The Critical Journey by a lady named Janet Hagberg and Robert Gulick, I think is how you say it. And they lay out kind of these developmental steps. And I can see when I interview somebody, I kind of go through those questions, sort of like you do. They're not always the same, but I go through those stages with people, and I just learn so much. And everyone's conversion experiences is different. Everyone's growth experiences are different, but they all kind of fit in that one. They're all in the same lane. And that's really changed the way I think about kind of what we should do in our churches and how I try to interact with people.
Yeah. Are we added on Facebook, or are we only added on LinkedIn?
We're on Facebook.
Okay. Could you message me the name of that book, please, on Facebook?
I will.
Wonderful. Could you say it again just in case someone listened and they wanted to hear it again as well?
Yeah, you bet. It's called The Critical Journey by Janet Hagberg, Hagberg, and I think Robert Gulick is also on there.
Yeah, it should pop up once we put that first Janet in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me why you will continue to do what you're doing, Eric, please.
Yeah, because I love it. So I really have grown to love, like I just kind of described how I love the spiritual journey and figuring out where people are and how I can help them. But I also just love great conversations, and I've just embraced that over the last few years.
Yeah, you sounded like the beginning of my podcast. Yeah, I love great conversations. I do love great conversations, and I'm guessing you do as well. Do you find yourself connecting dots? You said you listened to a few of the episodes. Do you find yourself connecting dots in your mind the way I do at that particular point?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's the fun part, I think, is to find different people's experiences and then start to see the themes that go through them.
Yeah, definitely fun.
Oh, if you do this, this is what happens,
Yeah, love it. Wow. Well, Eric, tell me one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years.
Yeah. I was going to say ask questions. So it was interesting. I told you about going to a seminary. I thought I was going to be a pastor. I thought I was going to be a teacher. And so I tried to teach over and over again, preaching. And I would always get so nervous and just never felt quite right, even though I thought that's what I should do. And what I've embraced recently is this idea that I can be a conversation starter instead of a teacher. And that kind of freed me up to ask better questions and think more about the question than think about the outcome that I'm trying to create.
Wow, which is very powerful. I mean, in the coaching space, that is what it is, right? You ask the questions that helps the individual get to the place they desire, and not so much tell them the answers to the questions they've asked to take them to the place you think they should be.
Yeah, dude, that is a brainstorm right there, because I realized 3 years ago, I actually took a course to become a coach. I haven't really done a lot with that, but a big part of that was questions. And so that might have been the start for me of embracing being a conversation starter and a question asker more than a teacher.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right there. I got chills. Ooh. All right. So how does it make you feel asking the questions and waiting for the answers?
Yeah, I love to be the question asker. I was talking to a friend this week, and we're just discussing, and I asked him a question, and he goes, "Oh, there you go. There you are with your question asking." Like he just knew. But to me, there's no better compliment than to say, "What a great question," and then to have people have to think about it. And when that sort of deepens the conversation and makes us better friends and better known to one another, that is the best feeling in the world to me.
Yeah. You're definitely uncovering my little secrets here. My friendships are built on these questions that I ask on 12-minute convos, and it's because of the depth of the conversation, the relationships thereafter. It's a seed. It's a seed for growth. And the relationships really are amazing that I build after having a 12-minute, sometimes more, sometimes less conversation. And my face isn't even being seen, right? It's like, it's only my voice, but it's because of the value of the questions. Eric, you're great. Suggest to someone that's listening, Eric, why they should even consider, they may consider asking questions a bit more than being that iron-fisted teacher, if you would.
Yeah. Well, I think that asking questions, you used a very interesting word, which is one of the words in kind of my heart, is powerful, right? It makes you powerful to ask a question, and then if you ever want to steer a conversation, a question can actually be your best tool to do that. So, but not even in a manipulative way. I don't mean that at all. But
of course not.
Asking a question it helps people think differently, and if you do it in a way without judgment, it just deepens those relationships.
Yes, it does. Well, amazing audience. Again, we are live with Eric Nevins, and he is the podcast host of Halfway There. Pretty intriguing name now that we've uncovered the value of asking questions and how you get halfway there, right? When you do ask those questions. Well, Eric, let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Eric, what is your earliest childhood memory?
My earliest childhood memory is sitting in my mom's lap on a rocking chair, probably at night, probably after a bath, and her reading me the Chronicles of Narnia as a little child.
How old do you think you were?
I was probably 4 or 5.
Why do you think this memory is so clear?
I think it taught me to read, and even though that didn't necessarily blossom until much later when I was in college and seminary, it was always a value in our house, reading. And even what she was reading, I don't know if you're familiar with Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. Great story.
Great stories. But it just stimulated my imagination in a way that I'm not sure much else would have. And I know for her, was important that it was a Christian-based idea there. But C.S. Lewis is just like few other fantasy writers.
Yeah, he is. He is. Well, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Sure.
I love the idea of there are two models of what we were speaking about that I almost missed. So yes, there is the model where you're asking questions and you're helping the individual. And then there's like the one host podcast style where you're not doing the interview, but you're telling the story and you are igniting questions in the individual's mind that is listening. And I think it's fascinating to see your grandmother doing that, where she too was telling a story, reading a story in this particular situation that would then just activate those questions in your mind, which provided so much growth in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It is. Even the idea of storytelling and what the Bible stories do as well, right? It's like you hear these stories and then immediately questions within yourself they just surface, right? Pretty fascinating stuff.
Oh, you're running the risk of getting me going off on a tangent.
All right.
I think stories are so important, and big chunks of the Bible are narrative for a reason.
Yes, sir. All right, my friend. Well, hey, if we fast forward to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
That is such a great question, and it must have been some church song that I don't remember anymore. I tried to think about that, but I didn't really get into music until a little later. So maybe I was a late bloomer, who knows, but maybe, 13, 14, I started to get into, I was always into like the hair bands, like Bon Jovi, hence the name Halfway There. And, Nelson and some of these, not the most popular ones, but just some of those kind of hair bands, like melodic rock, arena rock stuff.
All right. What's one song that pops in your mind though?
For like when I was 12.
Or anywhere around that time.
Anywhere around there. All right. Well, the year I was 12, let's just say Bon Jovi's Bad Medicine.
All right. Wonderful. Yeah. Love it. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Eric, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Yeah, my son Josiah.
Are you married?
Yes, happily for 20 years.
Oh, wow. 20. What age did you get married at?
We were 20 years old.
Oh, okay. That adds up.
20 years in August this year.
Wow, congratulations. What's your wife's name?
Jody.
Hey, Jody.
Today as she was 20 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing. There we go. So Jody and Josiah. Do you have other children?
I do. I have 4 kids total. So we have a high schooler, an 8th grader. Josiah's he's in 3rd grade, and then a 1st grader.
Wow. Do you believe in God?
Absolutely.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I do.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I don't.
All right. What about 3 hours a week?
Definitely 3 hours a week. We're a little more. We have more time on the weekends, so sometimes we'll watch a little more TV on the weekends.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh gosh, it's way more than 8.
Cool.
Yeah, and then coming home and whatever on the phone or computer, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Eric, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, what would you say that is?
I'm going to go with this. Be curious, be quiet, and be attentive. I think those are my 3 things I would love to statement like my life to be about.
Love it. Eric, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I'll say one thing. Do the things that you want to be good at in 2 to 3 years. Start now, whatever it is. I started podcasting. It was on my mind 3 years ago. And get started. Don't wait.
Love it. Eric Nevins, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.